Let's blow this up.
Greetings and welcome to a very special edition of Let's Blow This Up. I'm your host, Jason Sircone, and today I've got two special guests joining me, and they are going to share with you the plight of making a podcast with yours truly. I am joined today by Pete Mansmann and Erin Marks of Precise Inc. Erin and Pete, welcome to the show.
Thank you.
I'm glad you guys could take some time to join me because as we sit and record today, we are about a week removed from the official launch of your first season of your new podcast known as Data Discourse. And I know that in working with both of you, this was a brand new project. You both had never been involved with podcasting before. So I wanted to capture the feelings and the emotion and ultimately how this all came together and what made this approach to building marketing material and getting a podcast together for your brand so important and so special. For our listeners, Erin is the marketing director at Precise Inc. and Pete is the CEO. Pete served as host of the first 5 episodes of the show known as Data Discourse. And the team at Precise, I got to say, in producing this show, for me, it gave me a little bit of time to geek out and listen to some of this just crazy information about mobile forensics and e-discovery and all the things that you do to help other law firms get into these types of things in regards to finding this evidence that helps win cases. Now, I can do no justice to this, so I'm going to turn the mic over to both of you, but give the audience a rundown of what you do at Precise Inc.
Well, we're still trying to figure that out, Jason, but as long as people are willing to pay us, that's what we do. Now, our business largely surrounds supporting attorneys, and in particular, litigation support attorneys in managing various aspects of a litigation, whether it's e-discovery, computer forensics, deciding what juries are the best or jurors are the best possible people for their trial, things like that. So we do a little bit of it all, as well as some marketing for attorneys as well.
So when this idea presented itself, I know Erin and we first connected and I shared some ideas about how this could work for you. So Erin, this question is directed towards you. What really jumped off the page? What made you feel that this would be a good approach to bring to Precise and bring to your guys' branding efforts?
Well, one thing, I mean, to be real technical and specific, we were challenged with our search results regarding mobile forensics. We do well with e-discovery, but online we weren't having a lot of great search results for mobile forensics. So we were thinking, how can we get some actual content onto our website that where we could really show the expertise of our team, but in sort of a fun way. And when we were sort of talking about creating a podcast, it just didn't seem like it would be something we could achieve, in all honesty. I mean, it sounded like a great idea, and it sounded fun, and it seems like a lot of people are doing podcasts these days, but we're a small group, and when it comes down to it, it seems like it would be hard to actually execute and stay on task and, put our schedule together and just do it. And what was appealing to us, with your company is it was sort of, honestly, it was sort of like a turnkey package. I have been managing marketing efforts for Precise for almost 20 years, and I know a little bit about how to produce content, but having the blueprint that you have put together, that was sort of like the essential component, I think, that really got that's when I knew that we could do this. And what you have with your Bombtrack Media podcast blueprint, it reminded me of a SWOT analysis. And anyone who does marketing will understand, like when you're evaluating like strengths and weaknesses and opportunities and threats, you kind of do that on sort of a regular basis, or you should. And it's sort of a way to sort of look at what your company is doing well and where you can improve and put your action plan together. And for the podcast, you create this blueprint for us to sort of fill out and get all of our thoughts organized. Mm-hmm. And that was really helpful. We were able to sort of, you have it broken out into 3 parts, if I can remember.
Yeah.
There's like the first part where you just sort of try to come up with what you want to do. Like, what do you want to accomplish? And like picking out a name, like all those like things, but what do you want to accomplish with this podcast? But what I thought was the most helpful was, and this is what reminded me of a SWOT analysis, when you sort of identify your target listener. And that's just a good exercise to do anyway. And just sort of we literally, and it seems silly at first, but you really like decided, like we literally had, I think, Larry litigator,
yeah,
any, I don't know, paralegal or something. And you like, you can envision this person who would be listening to the podcast, and you're able to think, okay, well, this person has 30 minutes and they're working out, like you would say, like they might be like doing a workout, they might be commuting. How would you want to present information about what you do that might be interesting to that person, and in a sort of digestible way? And that was really helpful for us to sort of get things going initially.
Well, and every week, Erin was asking us in our weekly meeting, saying, guys, I need some content. I need some content from you. And it's easier said than done.
About the podcast.
Yeah, before to say, I need something to post to the website. I need some blog or something like that. And it's impractical to find time in the week to do that regularly. And for me to button on to what Erin just said, it was important to say, look, we can get a lot of content done in a concise period of time and drip this out over a longer period and utilize it in multiple ways.
And I mean, I am asking for content because I can write, I do marketing, and I've been with this company for a number of years, but it's something where I need, I'm not a forensics analyst. I'm not an attorney. I need to hear from our expert team. I need stuff from them first that we can refine. So having this like plan in place, and we were sort of forced to put together an outline, we could formulate this podcast, and it was easy to put our questions together. We were able to come up with concepts and themes, and then we scheduled it and we just did it. And that was half the battle.
Yeah. That's what I'm all about with Bombtrack Media. It's all about the efficiency, and it starts with the plan, because if you are trying to piece it together one thing at a time, it can get completely haphazard and ultimately go off the rails because there's just no plan to stick to. So you're putting one thing together today and then hoping we can get some progress made, and then all of a sudden, oh, well, we didn't factor in this and that. But by doing the blueprint that you mentioned, the reason I built that the way it was is, and in planning podcasts over the years, when I put that together, I said, what is everything that I've ever thought about when I first launched a podcast, or from my own mistakes, what did I miss that I should have thought about before I launched a podcast? And if you've never done this, you don't know what you don't know. So you more than likely have a lot of ideas in your head, but not a clear path on how to organize those ideas so it all makes sense for putting this project into motion. So that's something that, again, for me, I think if we didn't have something like that and you just try to piece it together one thing at a time, it's really not going to lead to any positive results. And I have to believe this is one of the big reasons why so many podcasters don't make it beyond their first couple episodes, because they are just trying to piecemeal it and then realize, oh man, there's so much work here and there's really no strategy. We're going with the ready, fire, aim approach. And I know that was when we spoke, that was the last thing we wanted to do. We want to make sure that we're structured. We know exactly who we're talking to. This is how the content's going to come together, and then we'll take it from there. And I think that's how it unfolded as we rolled out those episodes.
Yeah, for sure.
And I think it's really important to force you to think through, for each episode, saying, all right, I have half an hour, 45 minutes to fill. What are we going to talk about?
Mm-hmm.
What is it that in this limited amount of time we want to express to our potential clients or our clients that this is the things we do. This is what just going through that process of thinking it through, a lot of it are things we already knew, or maybe we've expressed elsewhere, but it's the cohesiveness of pulling that all together to say, yeah, this is our messaging. And I think half the time you get busy being busy, that, having set deadlines, having set structure, having set, places to go to do certain things is, like you said, half the battle of just saying, I'm going to be here for the next hour. What am I going to do with it?
Yeah. And identifying that target listener helps that content come together because you know exactly who you're speaking to. And if you can make an impact on that one person who hits all that key criteria that you're trying to accomplish, it just makes future content even more easier because that person's responded. They're telling you how much they've been able to leverage and utilize the content that you put in front of them. Just let you know you're on the right track and you can continue to build for that specific person. So I know we're early in the game, but share some success stories, at least in regards to feedback, the early feedback that you've received up to this point. Anything good coming through the wires from your listeners?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of people, Erin did a great job of having a not only helping us get through the process of recording the podcast and making sure we were talking about intelligible things, but had a game plan about how am I going to distribute this? Where is it going to go? How are we going to promote this? Where are we going to use? And to be honest with you, my first thought was like, who's going to listen to a forensics or e-discovery podcast? I was more looking at it from the content side of things. Like, hey, we finally have this content we're going to be able to use over a longer period of time. And I still think that's going to be a valuable piece to this. But I was pleasantly surprised that when she sent an email out to a lot of our longtime clients and, promoted this in the various ways, that we got a lot of responses back. People I haven't talked to in a while just said, hey, saw you did a podcast. That's great. This looks great. We should catch up sometime.
Nice.
Or they were just getting into, we could see who accessed it and things like that. And quite honestly, a lot more than I thought we're going to do it immediately have done so. And so I think we're very early on in the process, but
sure.
It's been encouraging so far what we've been seeing.
Excellent.
And it was also interesting because there is a learning curve. I had never posted. Our website, it's a WordPress based website, and I can certainly navigate the pages and the posts and tweaking some layout elements. But I wanted to put the little player, like, there's a big learning curve, and I didn't know how to get that player. And then Jason used, okay, I can send you the embed code. And that was okay. And I, figured that out. And then since you also include the blog posts, included all the transcripts, we have all that text.
Yeah.
The sort of, you call them chapters, like the little sections of each podcast where if you want to just navigate to this one part, like sort of like a little table of contents. I had all that. So I could put the player on our website, and then I could also have make it like a blog post. So that text was in there. We have the video, the actual video of just like this of the podcast going on. So I could use that and put that on YouTube. The shorts, I had no idea what those were, except for what my 13-year-old scrolls through on his, YouTube when he's looking at YouTube. That was interesting to see. And I'm already seeing the few that we've published, these video shorts on YouTube. They're a couple people have liked them, and then I can see how the algorithm sort of expands, and that's interesting to see. So yeah, people are listening to it.
Yeah.
And that's exciting. It's an excellent media channel to understand, to know how to understand and navigate and use and plan for. And since we already sort of now know how this works, if we're going to go into another season, it's like, okay, well, we just have to come up with our theme and our topics and put the question together, schedule a date, record it, and I already understand how we're going to put it out there again.
Yeah, you hit on a lot of things there. The most important being that where a lot of this gets lost, especially for a company or for a business, and this is something that I stress more than anything, that it's great to have a podcast because it's a tremendous medium, because people are listening to it in a number of different settings, on the road, on a bus, at the gym, on a walk, you name it. You can put a podcast in your ear and you can consume that, and it's intimate time that you're spending with your target listener. But for a business, you have other objectives that you're trying to achieve. And in doing that, you need to check off boxes for social media, for your website, for your email newsletters, for your blogs, you name it. There's a number of things that you need to accomplish because you're trying to create this overall experience for someone that finds you, ultimately giving them all the information they need to build trust in you. It seems almost crazy until you actually experience, which both of you have, when you've experienced the fact that one podcast episode can lead to this absolute bundle of content that can be utilized across the entire sphere of your marketing strategy and your marketing footprint.
Mhm.
That's where I mean, I tell people this, and sometimes they look at me with wide eyes because without actually experiencing it, I get it. It's hard to see it, but you two now have proof that this is exactly what happens, because I took that one podcast episode and just extracted the hell out of everything that I could. And now you have all this material that you can work with for a long time. And that's, for me, the smarter way for a business to utilize this content, because you have other objectives outside of your marketing as well. So you're not always going to have full-time dedication to this, but this makes your job easier because you always have something to pull from.
Yeah. And especially when you're in a specialized business like we are, it's pretty hard to go out and just buy content that sounds professional and is going to be representing what you would actually want it to say. You have to create it.
Right.
And therein lies the rub, is that every week where Erin's saying, guys, I need some content for you. And we keep saying, sure, we'll get it next week. And she's like, where's the content? And we're like, next week. It's just not going to work unless you set it up in a more succinct system. And to Erin's point earlier, she's a great writer. She can make something that we spit out sound wonderfully professional, but she doesn't know the subject area like we do. And it takes us getting that out of our brains and onto some type of medium to make use of. And
yeah,
even along the lines of the social media, LinkedIn and things like that, is that where a lot of lawyers or our clients are going to find us? Maybe not, but you have it. You put it out there. You might as well at that point, spread it as far as you can, because you've got the pieces that fit multiple areas. And you never know where someone's going to grab onto something and say, that's interesting enough for me to call these folks. So again, my whole sort of inclination towards this to begin with was, all right, this is our own content library, but it certainly has a lot more value in different formats than I would have envisioned originally.
Yeah, you have audio visual, and you even just coming up with our little, graphics for the cover art, like all that stuff. It's all content.
Yeah.
And the transcripts, I mean, even like a blog post is just a fraction of the 45-minute conversation.
Right.
So still within those transcripts, there is still tons of just quotes from our guys that I could use. I mean, for like an ad or anything, just something. It's just nice to have that there.
When you think about it, that full transcript, what it is like is almost like going to Chat GPT and prompting it for some content without having to actually do it.
And it's authentic.
And it's authentic. Exactly. It's your content. So you could go through that transcript, find a couple snippets that could inspire an idea for an email or for anything that you'd want to do for marketing. And then you put your own extra spin on it, make it look shiny, and then you put it out for your people. So yeah, lots of value in that. That's why I feel that written component, there's so many benefits built into that.
And like mini blogs, it's not, there are other blog posts waiting in that text, ideas for future episodes, or it's just very important.
Well, we did 5 episodes, and if you figure if we could get 10 blogs a piece out of an hour's worth of that, which I'm sure we can, that's
easily.
That's one posting a week. And if you compare again what you would be trying to do in an SEO format of trying to hire somebody to give you a unique piece of content every week, it would be ridiculously expensive and probably inaccurate if you're in a very specialized business. So
with the specialized, it's like you still have to go back and make all kinds of tweaks, because it's just not, it's too nichey.
or what you get is just so generic it's meaningless.
That's what I'm saying.
Were there any surprises that you discovered or experienced in the production process that you weren't expecting?
Microphones.
Well, we had fun with that. Yes.
Not really. I mean, I was actually surprised that we ate up as much time as we did in our episodes. I thought they would have been shorter your audience may have gathered just from this short podcast that I am loquacious at times, so that shouldn't have been a surprise. But yeah, I mean, we had, I think at the end, each of our episodes was at least 45 minutes, and a couple of them, were over an hour. So there was a lot more to talk about. Once you got into the sort of conversational element of it, and just we had an outline of saying, here's the points we want to hit, but rather than trying to script it, let's just talk. I think it came through. It filled a lot of time up that I was surprised.
And also, I will say, well, one surprise I had that since the platform that Jason uses, I mean, he is able to get, like, when you always listen to a podcast, there will be an advertisement saying, "Oh, listen to this where you get your podcast, or tune in wherever you listen." And that's how it is here. He's able to, get our podcast to all the big places like Apple and Spotify and iHeartRadio. And since that's the case, it's just like, I listen to Apple Podcasts, and I always have my podcast. I have tons of podcasts that I listen to regularly when I'm in the car. And so I'm driving, and I had our little Data Discourse was in there because I had, subscribed to it. So my other podcast wrapped up, and it came up, and on my little screen in the car, like, there it was. And I'm like, this looks so professional and real, So that was it. That was surprising and exciting. And that's great. I mean, that's how we would love to have that look, and that's how it looks.
That's what it's all about. And I'll go back to what Pete was saying. I remember that on our first recording day, I believe it was you that said, "Man, we're gonna be lucky to get half an hour out of any of these episodes." And I said, "You're gonna be surprised how much you have to talk about."
Yeah.
And then that first episode went about 50 minutes, and I was just like, I told you. I get it, because if you've never sat down and actually just started talking about your area of specialty, it's sometimes in your head you're thinking, well, I talk about this so much that it's talked out to death. But once you really get into it and you start exploring all the sub themes that are built into it, you can really expand upon things way more than what you're originally envisioning. And that's exactly what happened. And I had a feeling it would, because I know you guys have a ton of knowledge on your subject matter. It was only a question of, where will this end? Because for me, I was like, we'll be over half an hour. I don't think we'll have any problem. Just based on the outlines that you guys had put together of what you wanted to talk about, I knew we were going to go over that time mark, which was fine, because we wanted to get this content built in a way that thoroughly explained each specific aspect of these subjects. And you guys knocked it out of the park with that. So yeah, totally not surprised. And in regards to the professionalism and having it on all of the platforms, that's the idea. We want to give anybody that finds this podcast an opportunity to consume it in the way they desire. So finding it on their favorite podcast app, or finding it on YouTube, or maybe finding the blog post that points them towards the player and they listen to it on the website, whatever the case may be, for me, it's all about being thorough. And again, I've used it a couple times in our conversation here, that covering of each segment of your digital footprint. It's hard to do that when you're individually creating pieces of content to try to satiate each of those networks. But when you do it for the podcast, you get to create all of this stuff in one fell swoop.
Yeah.
And that, to me, is the magic of this whole thing, especially when a business is looking for a content library that they can utilize for months at a time. This is the only way to fly.
Well, another thing I thought was helpful in the process and in the recordings themselves were that, we did ours all interview style. So I was largely asking questions of folks in my company, and we had some banter back and forth, et cetera. But knowing that, this isn't hey, I got to get this in one take, and if I sound stupid on how I answer something, or if we lost track, that's what's going to come across.
Right.
It was not the issue here, that there was going to be edited in hindsight, made it easier. And there was a few points where I had probably asked a very poorly worded question, and the person I was asking was trying to answer it, and then they kind of stopped and said, "Wait, what is it we're talking about here again?" And saying, what, let's stop. Let's start over again. Let me ask that again. And just knowing, hey, this is going to all be cleaned up in the editing wash at the end, so that we sound a lot smarter than we are. That was very useful to know.
Yeah, especially even if you're experienced, because a lot of people doing this for the first time, much like you guys, or even experienced podcasters, we're going to screw some things up. And it's nice to know that when that final polished product goes out to our audience, we sound like the professionals that we are, sans all of the flubs. That's what it's all about. That's the magic of the backroom editing.
And that's much appreciated.
Happy to bring that to you guys. So we're getting close to our time here. So I wanted to put you on the spot and have you share with the audience, as if we haven't done this over the last 25 minutes, but I'll make you do it in a more specific, tighter fashion. What was it like working with me?
Well, great. I mean, I super friendly, easy, very responsive. I loved using Slack. That was really easy to use, and some of the stuff was a little bit last minute, right before we would record, and that was helpful. But you were very friendly and easy to work with. It was great. It was fun. It was fun.
Yeah,
and
I would.
It's a great process. So that made it a lot easier. So
excellent. Thank you.
And I would echo it. You didn't put constraints again, knowing that this is the first time we were doing it, and we went longer than we anticipated and things like. You let it flow, and there wasn't any kind of, hey, you guys are eating up more time than I want to edit all this stuff. In hindsight, there wasn't any of that. It was, you were happy that the content got out the way we wanted it to get out, and that we came out with a finished product that we wanted. I really appreciated that. And I thought, setting things up and working through the inevitable hiccups along the way that were more on our side than yours, certainly, was easy to do with you. You never made it a stressful situation. So I had a very positive experience with it.
And answered I had a lot of questions. Like I said, a bit of a learning curve, just very helpful. And I did not feel stupid.
To the point where, I'm going to recommend to some of our clients that, they consider doing podcasting through you and with us. I think it's a great tool that they should consider utilizing.
Well, thank you. Yeah. And I think what we've put together here serves as a nice template to show to your clients and say, this is what we've done, and this would work for you too. And again, with everything we've talked about today, now they have a clear understanding of what the process was like for you as well, which was ultimately why I wanted to do this, not just for your clients that we're going to talk to, but for anybody that's looking to bring a podcast into their business practices. This is what it's like to do it with Bombtrack Media, because it's so much more about the overall strategy versus just let's start a podcast because it's sexy and that's what everyone else is doing. This is about getting down to what you really need to drive your business forward.
Yeah, it's part of the marketing strategy.
Exactly. It can be a key component, if not the biggest component. Mm-hmm. If you really get down to what you need, you can utilize a podcast to draw so much content and so much information that can be utilized to put the right information in front of people. And I feel that's what we've accomplished with the first season of Data Discourse. And I'm looking forward to doing season 2 with you guys in the near future.
Yeah.
You're gonna get more of us, unfortunately for you.
We'll make sure we get the mics all in order before we get to get to production day. It's going to be a good time, I guarantee it.
Yep.
Well, Erin and Pete, I want to thank you for taking the time to join me and break down season 1 of Data Discourse. For all of our listeners who'd like to check out what we've put together collectively, you can find Data Discourse on your favorite podcast app. And Erin, since you were in charge of putting it elsewhere throughout your footprint, you can share where they can find it on the World Wide Web.
Oh, you can go to our website, which is precise-ediscovery.com.
And if you are in the world of law and you're in need of some mobile forensics, digital discovery, Precise is the brand you need to check out. So while you're on the website, make sure you give them a call, set up a consultation, and continue to listen to the podcast because we've only got good things to come.